I'm hoping the Big Ten has to modify their system for us.
Probably like getting grade 10 sandpaper rubbed on your face every day.
I mean, we say it all the time, whether, there's two types of turds. You're a sinker or you're a floater, but you're still a turd, right? I
mean, we are about players and players playing the plays and not necessarily the plays.
Welcome to the Varsity Club podcast. My name is Derek Peterson. Joining me this week, one of Hail Varsity's newest writers, Steve Marik. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain. This is we're recording this on a Thursday. Steve just finished up Michigan State preview for the weekend. Nebraska's got a big road game. Another shot at a ranked opponent for Scott Frost. We'll get into Michigan State. We'll get into Steve's thoughts on Oklahoma if he wants to. No pressure. But first, subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. Leave a review, leave a star rating. All of that stuff really helps. Shout out to Cam for producing this podcast every single week. Shout out to you guys for listening. If you're also not subscribed to Hail Varsity, make sure to get that remedied as quickly as possible. You're going to want the magazine. You're going to want digital coverage. You're going to want premium coverage. So go get subscribed at hailvarsity.com/subscribe. Get that taken care of. Steve, do you think Oklahoma was a moral victory for Nebraska? Or no? We can keep this short since this has kind of been like the big talking point for the weekend. I'm just curious what your take is.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people there's like a fine line. Like there's moral victory people, then there's not moral victory people. For me, just considering where they're at as a program, just the expectations about that game, nobody really expected them to do anything. They expected Oklahoma to blow out the Huskers. I think that, yes, they should be feeling good about themselves going into this week. So I guess that would put me in the moral victory side of the fan base.
Yeah.
I just think that they played very well in some areas. I think Adrian Martinez, while he's running for his life, he still managed to play one of his best games as a Husker. Obviously, the offensive line is still whatever is happening there, that is still going on, which is not very good for if you want to win football games. But the defense showed up, I think, really well. They made Spencer Rattler uncomfortable, which I don't think a lot of teams have been able to do. Eric Shenander's got that unit really flying around and making plays. But yeah, I think they should be feeling pretty good about going into this game with Michigan State. But yeah, just watching Michigan State, that's a pretty dang good team too. So yeah, I think they should be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, they look like a Big Ten team. I said this on Greg's podcast earlier in the week. They look like a Big Ten team, specifically defensively, talking about personality, talking about the way they wanted to play that game. My dog agrees with me. And that's a thing to feel good about. But the reason I bring that up, and we will now transition to Michigan State, is because if you view what happened last week in a loss as a positive step for Nebraska because it was expected for them to get blown out, then this week becomes super interesting because entering the season, people had small or no expectations for Michigan State. It was Mel Tucker's second year in charge. A lot of people were tossing around the phrase year zero, which I hate for Mel Tucker last year, just because of how late in the process he was inserted as the head coach, didn't have regular offseason to kind of get acquainted with his team, COVID and everything. You could make the argument that he was the most affected coach in college football by COVID last year, just because of the situation that he found himself in. He hit the transfer portal hard. They look like a different team this year. And so people weren't sure what to expect. Some people thought Michigan State was going to be really bad. As it turns out, Michigan State's actually pretty good. Just watching them, they hit hard. They play tough. They look like a Mel Tucker team, just in the short time that we've gotten to see Mel Tucker as a head coach. And they have arguably one of the most productive, well, not arguably, one of the most productive running backs in the country right now to begin the season with Kenneth Walker. So Michigan State is 3-0, undefeated, obviously ranked number 20. Nebraska's going on the road. It's a night game. Michigan State is going to stripe the stadium. They're pumped for it. It's going to be somewhat emotional, given the extra kind of off the field situation with Sam Foltz. His family's going to be there, which is, I think, going to be a pretty cool moment. So a lot of stuff with this game, a lot of potentially this could be like the signature win that Frost has been looking for. And I think if you looked in the offseason at the schedule and said, yeah, Michigan State is going to provide him with that opportunity, people would have been like, you're insane. But maybe now, coming off of a close loss, a tough loss, a hard fought loss in which you surprised a lot of people, to go on the road to Michigan State and beat a ranked Michigan State team and hand that team their first loss. To do it, I would assume you have to stop the run. To do it, I would assume you have to be pretty good when you get the ball and scoring opportunities, because Michigan State is pretty good at translating scoring opportunities into points. To do that would be a pretty big moment for Nebraska, and it would be another step in the right direction after the one that they took last weekend. But like, as we've seen with this team, stacking steps on top of each other is like the hardest thing for them. It's one step forward, two steps back. So let's start there. Do you think last week will have kind of an emotional boom for them? Like, what are you expecting them to look like in the first quarter against Michigan State?
So you hope that it would not be similar to the first quarter, the first drive, even against Oklahoma, about all of those awful penalties on the offensive line. And still they came out of it with 3 points, right? Didn't they? Am I remembering that right? Out of all of those false starts that they had, they still came out of that first drive with a field goal.
It was remarkable.
Yeah, that is. That's just that shouldn't happen in football, but it did. So it was remarkable. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting them. It's hard to look at this Nebraska team and see it as one that doesn't make those backbreaking penalties. So I'm just assuming that they're going to happen. It's a part of the program right now. It always has been since Frost. So I'm just assuming that stuff's going to happen. But I don't know. I think for some reason that they're going to hang with Michigan State. It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a Big Ten game. It's going to be a double mouthpiece game, as Mel Tucker likes to say it. I found that really, really awesome that he used that phrase. It's just awesome, double mouthpiece game. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting them to come out and just, again, not be like last year's. They beat Penn State, then they get blown out by was it Illinois, right? Yeah. Stack the games like they did. Garrett Nelson was talking about. He used that phrase, stack the games. Don't have it be like last year where you have that good win against Penn State and you want to stack the game, but then you let Illinois run for over 400 yards and win on your own field. So just like you said, stack the game, and I think they will. They're going to be in for a real fight here. You
started to say, and I think the word that you were going to use was embarrassed, maybe embarrassed a little bit by Illinois last year.
Yes.
Certainly defensively, I think they felt embarrassed by what happened.
Yeah.
And like, because of Michigan State's strength, if you don't come out ready to play, there's the chance they can do that to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like an offense that's going to put up like 40 on you, but if you let them build a lead, then like I already said, they got one of the best running backs in football that they can just lean on and milk the clock down the end. And you could suddenly find yourself in like a 27-6 lopsided score. I'm not saying that happens, but like, that's the worst case scenario for Nebraska. Like let's go to Kenneth Walker now. Transfer from Wake Forest. He was sort of a X factor wild card for people that were looking at this running back room, looking at this offense heading into the season. Currently, he leads all FBS players in yards per game, and he ranks 4th among running backs with at least 20 carries this year, 4th in yards per play. He's averaging 164 rushing per game and 8.7 per carry. He's been awesome. What have you seen from him?
He reminds me of another, I just got done writing this for the preview. He reminds me of another really good Michigan State running back, Le'Veon Bell. He is patient when he needs to be. His cuts are so impressive. The way he just like shifts over on like one kind of juke move type thing. It's so incredible. And then you just see defenders just flying by. just like getting a hand on him and then slipping off. It is so impressive. He looks so comfortable. He looks like he's been running the football for years and years and years. He is basically exactly what Mel Tucker and that coaching staff, Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator, probably was hoping that they were going to get from Wake Forest. Because I even went back and I watched a couple of his Wake Forest games. Do you remember them running that like zone read option and the mesh point? They like made it last like 2 to 3 seconds. It was so long. I mean, that kind of like it seems to me like Kenneth took that, what he learned with Wake Forest, the patience, the waiting for the blocks and everything up front to get settled before you actually put your foot in the ground and go. I think that he is like bringing that over to Michigan State, and we're seeing the results. It's been amazing.
So take this with a big giant grain of salt, because before we started podcasting, I think some of the advanced data is still a little wonky right now, but CFBdata.com has Michigan State currently 9th nationally in line yards, which are basically like a portion of rushing that is that the line is responsible for. They created this amount of yards in the running back, cool. The rest. So 9th nationally. So maybe you're off a little bit, but the offensive line has been good. I think is what those numbers are telling you. They're 5th nationally. Now I think you can hang your hat on. They're 5th nationally in yards per carry as a team. And they're only averaging about 39 yards or 39 runs per game. So they're about middle of the pack in terms of run rate. But just uber efficient. So the offensive line has been eating dudes up.
Yeah.
Generally. Do you think Nebraska's defensive line, do you think this could be a showcase game for them? Because
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, so it was a showcase game for the entire defense last week against Rattler in that offense. But this week, look at those. I mean, we're probably going to see I know Nebraska's base defense, if they're going up against the offense with 11 personnel with only 1 tight end, they're going to have 2 down linemen and 4 linebackers, and then JoJo back there with four other DBs. This is a game where, look, Michigan State still goes, from what I just watched, still goes a lot of 11 personnel, but they're also going to throw in some 12 too. So I can see this being a game where Nebraska uses a lot of 3 down linemen instead of just the normal 2 when the 1 tight end is out there. So I think this is going to be a showcase for them, and I think they're up for the challenge. And if they end up doing their job and holding and really containing, Scott Frost was talking today, and he was talking about Kenneth Walker, about containing him. You're probably not going to keep him from getting 100 yards, but can you stop him from getting 150 and 3 touchdowns? Yes, that'd still be good. If you just kind of contain that run game and put more pressure on Peyton Thorne's arm and their talented wide receivers over there, I think that's the recipe, obviously, to get out of there with the win.
Garrett Nelson's been playing a ton with his hand in the dirt this season. What have you thought of the start to his year?
So I think that he's growing in the run defense part of being an outside linebacker. I know they're asked to, like you said, put him and Caleb Tanner are asked to put the hands in the dirt a lot of times. And I think he's still learning and growing about how to do that. Caleb Tanner, by the way, has been excellent this season, I think, especially from what we've seen last year. I don't think he was that comfortable, I guess, in the run game, but this year he's throwing his shoulders into pulling linemen. He's really mucking it up in the middle there. He's being a great run defender, I believe. And I think, Garrett Nelson, I think he's getting better for sure. It's the defense as a whole has been playing pretty good. And, Garrett Nelson is just a part of that, where you want to have him out there because he's like a dog chasing a car. He's just going 100 miles an hour. But I think he's learning along the way. So
one guy that potentially makes this interesting is Casey Rogers. Has there been any update on him?
Yeah, so he was dressed for the first time this season last week with Oklahoma when they went to Oklahoma, and he made the trip and everything, but he didn't play. So we'll see this week. Maybe he sees the field, but nobody's really confirmed that.
Gotta love the way Scott Frost handles injuries. Gotta love it. It's just a wait and see game. Wait and see on a Saturday.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything from him. I respect it, I guess.
Yeah. Defensive line, just in general. When I say showcase game, like you think about the Nebraska team that Scott Frost took over, it was a team that just you could run them over, and there wasn't going to be much resistance. And the run defense fell to depths that I think people were frankly embarrassed over. And they've made strides over the course of Chenander's first 3 years. I think they were at like 4.5, a little below that in terms of yards per carry last year. They're at 4.3 right now. Overall impressions of the defensive line through the first 4 games. Are you left wanting more? Do you think that they've generally been doing what needs to be done? Where are you at with them?
I think they've been doing okay. If you ask them, they think that they can be doing better. But the thing with this defense, I think so far through 4 games is they're bending, but they're not really breaking. I know I've talked to some of my colleagues here at Varsity about that. And so, like, look, they're not going to be top of the defense right now in terms of like giving up yards and stuff, because I think they're kind of middle of the pack with like yards allowed in the conference. But you know, I think Bo Pelini once said it's not about the yards, it's about the points, right? And I think they're doing a good job of keeping teams out of the end zone, and especially we saw that last week in Oklahoma. They did an excellent job of that. I think they held up their end of the bargain in that game. I believe so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of the defensive line, I know everybody wants to kind of point at the sack numbers because you know they're not very high, but like Shenander and Tuioti have been talking about, there's more ways to impact a quarterback than just getting sacks. You can bat balls, you can collapse the pocket so the quarterback doesn't have anywhere to go, and he can't really, like, if he's throwing the football, he can't finish his follow through because there's an offensive lineman in his face. That's what he means by like collapsing the pocket. So there's different ways of impacting quarterback, and I think they've been doing that. I think it's been good. Obviously, it can be better, but yeah, with this, they're gonna get a fight on Saturday because Michigan State's going to be coming at them, and I think that they're up for the challenge.
Do you think that's the side, or that's the battle that determines the game, Nebraska's defense versus Michigan State's offense, or do you think that it's going to be more evenly balanced?
No, I think it's going to be, that's a good point. I think the Nebraska's D-line versus Michigan State's O-line and that run game is going to help decide the game. If Kenneth Walker does Kenneth Walker things like he has the past 3 games, I don't think Nebraska is going to win. But if he is contained, like Scott was talking about today, I think they have a great chance of getting out there with a tight win.
Okay. Let's switch to the other side of the ball. People have talked about the way Adrian Martinez played last week, maybe one of his best games as a Husker. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So I do think that it was one of his best games as a Husker. If you're looking at QBR, like Brandon Vogel, one of my bosses talked about after the game, it was his 3rd best of his career. If you're looking at just Power 5 opponents, obviously Fordham and Buffalo were higher, but those are group of 5 and FCS opponents right there. But yeah. I do think, I know he's a hot topic right now, like Adrian Martinez at quarterback with the fan base, but you have to take into account he is running for his life so often, and he managed to just like take care of the ball, aside from that one video game interception from DJ Graham, one-handed interception. But he manages to take care of the ball when everything is crumbling around him. And I just really respect what he did and what he has done this season. It was kind of a rough start with the Illinois game where he just plain missed throws. And I think he'd agree with that. But since then, I think he's done very, very well. And I think he's playing more in control. He's calm, which is kind of shocking just from the offensive line that he's working with and how he's having to run for his life all the time. But yes, I do think it was one of the best games that he had.
I would like to pause this conversation briefly and go on a tangent that is going to completely derail us. But just have you noticed any kind of like pettiness between Nebraska people against the Oklahoma DB who caught that interception? We're like, well, you should have just dropped it. Well, it was a dumb play. Have you noticed this?
Yes, I have. But look, like, okay, can I just tell you where I stand on this whole, oh, you shouldn't have intercepted it because it was bad field position?
Yeah, it sounds like we're in the same wavelength.
Okay, so if I'm DJ Graham and I'm playing defense and I'm like trailing Levi Falk like he was, and I think that I can pick the ball off, it's natural human instinct to grab the ball and pick off a pass and get an interception. I know like you can go from 1,000 feet and look down and everything and say, hey, he should be taught to just bat the ball down, right? But like, I don't know, if I'm like playing, it's in the heat of the moment, bullets are flying, I'm catching the ball if I can. So that's where I stand. I think it's a great play. DJ is a great player and everything. It was an incredible catch with one hand, but if I was him, I would have done it too. Sorry.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley joked after the game that he might have been the first coach to ever challenge his own team's interception because because it hurt him from a field position standpoint. I've seen people say like that almost cost them the game. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. No, it did not. Nebraska. Someone looked at Nebraska's had like double-digit drives in the last few minutes of a game to either tie or take the lead, and they've got like 3 points out of those drives. It's something awful. Like that guy catching that pass did not nearly cost Oklahoma the game. That's absurd.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. That was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah,
like
let's just out of the video game, man. That's crazy.
Let's just enjoy it. Let's not be like, well, you should have dropped it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, probably in a perfect world. But at the same time, like that was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in my entire life. Let's just be like, Me too. Golf clap or Dumbledore clap on the top of your hand. Just well done. Well done. Well done.
Can I raise you another thing that I've kind of noticed with the fan base recently this week?
Sure.
So they are I'm wondering what you're going to think about this.
Go at Steve's mentions, not mine.
Yeah. Okay. So Michigan State 3-0, right? Okay. They have beaten Northwestern. They have beaten Youngstown State, and they have beaten Miami at Miami, and they also beat Northwestern at Northwestern.
Okay.
So a lot of the fan base recently has been, well, those are probably just three bad teams, right? I watched Miami and Northwestern try to tackle Kenneth Walker, and they're flying all over the place. Like, oh, come on, those are three bad teams. That's not impressive. They're just like crapping on everything that Michigan State has done for 3 games. Like, come on, like seriously. Like that's just like taking everything that Michigan State has worked for this offseason and just like pooping on it.
Yes. To be devil's advocate though, Northwestern looks awful.
They do.
like really bad. Miami also looks incredibly overrated. A lot of the Miami could win the ACC or challenge Clemson for the ACC. Looks to be malarkey right now. They don't look great. And Youngstown State, Youngstown State is has a reputation, but we'll see. I wonder. And, if they come out and punch Nebraska in the mouth, then it's real. But maybe like 2016, Nebraska starts 7-0 vibes. Just slightly. I like Michigan State. I think they've looked really good. Again, I watched that Northwestern game closely and I was like, oh, they're just hitting the crap out of these people. They're playing very hard. And that's what you want to see from a team that young in a tenure.
Yeah.
Sorry for the tangent. Stop.
No, I love it. This is
well done, DJ Graham. Back to Adrian. I think the best thing that could have possibly happened to him for his, stature amongst the fan base was for his offensive line to play as poorly as it has to start the season. Because everybody's like, oh my God, like Adrian's playing great. Imagine if we had an offensive line. Yeah. It's one of those things where like he should be thanking his offensive line while also kicking them in the ass and saying, protect me.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Maybe that's just the best Adrian. The best Adrian is him running for his life and just like, acting off the fly. Maybe that is the best Adrian. Maybe the best Adrian isn't when he is well protected and not having to run for his life. Who knows?
It is one of those interesting things because I remember this conversation cropping up. It was either 2019 or I don't think it was last year. Maybe it was last year. I don't know. Time's a circle. It wasn't his freshman year, there was a conversation that was like, well, maybe Adrian is just so much better when he's on the run and he's better outside the pocket and he's better throwing on the move. Maybe, but at the same time, like you ask any quarterback playing football, do you want to have a clean pocket in front of you from which to throw? They will say, yes, please. Can I have a clean pocket? Like,
yes, please. May I have some more?
Yeah. I mean, and if if all the focus of the offseason was about let's get deeper down the field, let's push further, those routes are going to take a little bit more time to develop. You need that time. Through the first 3 weeks, they were significantly more explosive than they were a year ago in the passing game. And, the game plan that they went to Norman with last week didn't necessarily lend itself to just throwing the ball up and down the yard. They wanted to really control possession. So I'll be really curious to see what they do this week against Michigan State, because, maybe the game plan is let's just play keep away from Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. Yeah. Just keep the ball, snap it, 10 seconds left, that type of thing. Right.
Yeah. Do you think that they're in a position where they can even do that? That's the big question offensively. That's a game plan that you want to do. That's certainly a game plan that they tried to deploy last week against Oklahoma. The offensive line has had problems protecting Adrian in the passing game and consistently moving guys at the line of scrimmage in the run game. Running backs have been, I guess, hit or miss. The running game outside of Adrian scrambling is just not good right now. So do you think that they are in a position right now where they can play that kind of a game plan, or would you prefer to see them just come out and say, yeah, we're going to try to put 40 on the board, try and keep up with us?
Yeah, I think that they're going to try, and I think they should try to move the ball with the handoff run game. Maybe this is a big Marquise step game. Who knows how he's performed in practice, though, so he may or may not play. But yeah, I think this could be a big Marquise step game. I see you're shaking your head with the running back rotation.
I'm sorry.
I agree. I completely agree, but it's the answer that we get. So.
It's not just the running back rotation. It's the whole thing. It's we're going to play the guys that practice the best. I'm like, no, you should play the guys that are the best players on your team.
No, I completely agree.
I'm not a coach and I'm not a coach for a reason. So I'm just a dummy talking on a podcast. Continue. Sorry.
You and me both, man. But yeah, I think this could be a big step game. I don't think that just watching Michigan State, that defense hits hard. They've got some dudes up front. They've got some strong guys that look pretty good up front. So I think that they're not, it's just going to be some of the same story over and over again with the offensive line. And, I don't know what to tell you about the offensive line. It's so odd. It didn't get much better when they kind of shook up the starting lineup last week at Oklahoma, and I don't think it's going to get any better this Saturday, but who knows? That's why they play the games.
Here's a question for you. Is that new offensive line configuration, is that sticking for this week? Do you see them sticking with Trent Hickson, trying something new? I don't know if you go back to Ethan Piper at this point. Maybe, but I mean, he got absolutely planted on the blocked field goal.
Yeah, you saw the extra point, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know if there's blocked extra point. Excuse me, I said field goal. Thank you. I don't know if it's a confidence issue right now, what's going on with him, but like, what do you do at that spot?
You stick with what you were rolling with last week, in my opinion. I think Hickson deserves, just to keep getting out there and seeing. I don't think you just quit on that starting five after one game. So I think you kind of stick with Hickson and roll with that starting five at Michigan State.
What do you think of the prospects of putting now? Brant Banks has played left tackle. He was in kind of a rotation with Turner Corcoran to start the season. But he was a guy who in the spring, Greg Austin talked about, he was swinging between tackle and guard, going on either side of the line. What do you think about just putting him at guard? I mean, he's a big guy. Hip mobility was something that Austin talked about needing improvement in the spring. What do you think about the idea of him going to guard? Because it's not lost on me that Hickson is replacing the guy who replaced him, because neither have gotten the job done.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to try. I mean, you have to start trying things to fix the handoff run game, because it's going nowhere. you can't just like keep doing the same thing over and over again, because that's the definition of crazy, right?
Sure.
They need to run the ball better with the running backs, not just rely on Adrian, because it's not going to happen for a 12-game season. He's not going to last.
Sure.
I think that you just need to, man, I just wish I was at practice, and I wish I watched the offensive linemen, I just want to see like what they're doing to get better.
Yeah. So it sounds like stick with Hickson for this game, see what happens. And then, you know, if you still have problems, then let's get weird. Let's start experimenting with things.
Absolutely.
Maybe Nuri Nwili, it was a hot name in the spring. Maybe he's
the last started games at Colorado State. Yeah.
Maybe he makes a mid-year charge. I mean, I agree with you. I think if the offensive line continues to have problems, then you just start mixing it up and see what happens, because it's not like it's been, it's not like it was a year ago or 2 years ago where you can just point at Cam Jurgens snapping the ball over his quarterback's head and say, that's the problem. It's like there's every guy. I mean, every single lineman had a penalty called on them last game, and everyone has put bad snaps on tape. There's not been a situation where it's like, like Brendan Hymas was really good last year. You couldn't look at Brendan Hymas and say, oh, Brendan Hymas is a problem over there at left tackle. They had problems elsewhere, but like Brendan Hymas was consistent. They don't really have one of those consistent guys. Maybe Cam Jurgens is the most consistent, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
He is the oldest though. So I guess that tracks in terms of,
he's the oldest.
Experience.
He's the leader up there.
Yeah. Keys to the game. We touched on it a little bit when you said you think it's going to be Nebraska's defensive line against Michigan State's offensive line. Let's say, give me 3 things that Nebraska does this, and it wins.
If Nebraska rushes for over 150 yards, they win. How about that?
Okay. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we could alternate. What about you? Or I could keep going here.
They got to keep Adrian clean.
Yeah.
Oklahoma had 5 sacks a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up the Buffalo game. Buffalo did not have a sack. Let me pull up the Illinois game. Illinois had 5 sacks on Adrian. In the Fordham game, Fordham only had 1. Now, I know competition is significantly different, but Nebraska's 2 wins, they've given up 1 sack. Nebraska's 2 losses, they've given up 10.
Mm-hmm.
Protect him. So if they can protect him, I think they got a good shot, because that means that Adrian's going to have time to move the ball down the field. Now, I know we just got done talking about how problematic protecting him has been, and how we're like, well, we don't know if we have a ton of confidence in their ability to do that. Just flip a switch and do that. But that's going to be a key for them each week moving forward in Big Ten play, because Big Ten defenses are tough, and Big Ten defensive lines are tough and nasty. And you're not going to get any quarter going forward. So if they can try to protect Adrian, that'll be one for me.
How about if the kicking game is 100%?
Man, I thought we were going to get through an entire podcast without talking about the stupid kicking game.
Connor Culp is going to get his chance again, and he's gonna pass with flying colors. I'm marking it down right now. Connor Culp's going to go 2 for 2 or something like that.
Okay. What do you think's going on? Is it the yips? Everyone wants to talk about the yips. Is it the yips?
I don't want to like be mean or anything like to kickers everywhere, but like, I think a lot of it is mental with them more than any other position on the field. Like quarterback, you have a lot going on, but with kickers, like that is some like stuff going through your head. You're waiting to like get out there. Oh, your name is called, run out there, and now you're supposed to like go and produce right away. That can't be easy. I feel for Connor. I think he's a great kid and everything, but we've seen what he can do, and he's not doing it. So that just like leaves you, it's all in between the ears right now. And I feel for anybody going through that in life, in sports, whatever. But I don't know. I think he's going to give him, Scott at his press conference today said that they're probably going to roll with Connor again on Saturday. So I bet he's going to impress some people and turn it around.
It's just so interesting to think about. I don't know that I necessarily, now I don't have any inside info on this, but just my gut, I don't necessarily buy the, boy, he had injury problems in the fall, because like,
Yeah.
if you're a kicker with injury problems to the point where it's affecting your kicking, you're not going to be kicking on Saturdays. They have, he's just a forgotten man at this point. But before Connor Culp even became available and he was a Husker, Chase Contreras was brought here from the JUCO level to be the guy. And he's still kind of sitting there. Like, if there's an injury to your kicker to where it's affecting him to this degree that Connor has underperformed to begin the year, like, that guy's not kicking. Like, I'm sorry, he's not going to be kicking if he's got an injury problem. So yeah. It seems like the yips. And, credit to Scott for doing, I guess, for handling this the way that he's handled it, because I would imagine that would inspire a little bit of confidence to say, hey, no, you were our kicker last year. You're going to remain our kicker. We trust you to work through this. You need to work through it, but we trust you to work through this.
I think they might even be going through that with the punter situation too. So Scott said today that Daniel Cherney, the Australian kicker, has been battling through an injury. So they're not sure if it's going to be him or Will Pristup doing the punting in the game on Saturday. So that might be a thing where, Cherney wasn't doing really that well. But Will came in and did very well against Oklahoma. He had some really good kicks. So we'll see. We'll see who trots out there first.
And this is a homecoming of sorts for Will. So
yeah, he's going back home. Yep.
It's a nice little side storyline to monitor, especially considering the non-football punting piece of it before the game. That'll be interesting. Any other thoughts on this Michigan State game that we didn't get to before you got to get out of here?
Can I say a guy who I'm really impressed with on Michigan State?
Go for it.
Connor Hayward, the tight end. He came to Michigan State as a running back first, and he was a running back for like 3 years there. Now he's a bigger dude, 6 foot, 230 pounds, and he has like over 800 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns in his career there. But this offseason, Mel Tucker came in and said like, hey, let's move you to tight end. And they're doing some really cool stuff, finding ways to get that guy the ball at tight end. A lot of tight end screens. He's caught multiple screens through 3 games. And when he gets the ball, you can see the former running back in him. It's pretty cool to watch. So yeah, just keep an eye on him. He's a willing blocker in the backfield. He does a lot of like cool things back there. And he usually takes defenses to the ball if you kind of watch him. So Connor Hayward, Michigan State, number 11.
Here's a fun thought experiment.
Uh-huh.
Tight ends are allowed to shine a ton in the Big Ten. It seems like we're always talking about Big Ten tight ends, and we get Big Ten tight ends in the league. TJ Hawkinson is on my fantasy team. He's doing awesome things. Yeah. We get big tight ends coming out of the Big Ten to go to the NFL. Like, what's that position for the SEC? I feel like for the Big 12, it would probably be quarterbacks, because they just always have great quarterbacks coming out of that league. What would it be?
Would it be like receivers from the SEC?
Maybe, or maybe linebacker.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we could go through like a whole like all 3 levels of the defense for SEC players.
Alabama and Georgia kind of wrecked the curve when it comes to linebackers, but like it seems like they've got 4 or 5 linebackers just between the 2 of them getting drafted every single year. Maybe it's that. What about the Pac-12?
Pac-12. We're being mean. I'm sure there's a position that they're good at.
Pac-12 is fun football.
Yeah.
There's been some good running backs coming out of the Pac-12 though.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe
they got some like DBs. Maybe, I don't know.
Washington.
Buda Baker went to Washington.
Yeah, I was just about to say Washington. This was one of the reasons my brother and I recorded a overrated, underrated podcast that has never seen the light of day. It died immediately. It something messed up with the file conversion, and it was lost to the void. But it's probably a good thing that it happened, because I made the case for Washington being one of the most underrated teams in the country. And then they started their season 0-2. And part of it was like, Jimmy Lake's a good defensive coach. I like Jimmy Lake. They always have great defensive backs.
Yeah.
What's happened at Washington is just sad.
I don't know. Montana got him, right?
Montana got him. Yep.
Ah, shoot.
Good for Toure.
Yeah, I'm sure Samari was watching that one.
All right, man. Well, you've got stuff to do. I'll let you get out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and talking. It was fun to catch up with you.
All right. Thank you, Derek.
That'll do it for this week. Like I said in the open, in the meantime, keep reading HailVarsity.com. Steve and the rest of the team will have you covered. Subscribe to the rest of the Hail Varsity podcast offerings. Brandon Vogel did his own Michigan State preview on the I-80 preview podcast. You can subscribe to that wherever you listen to podcasts. I was on Greg Smith's Straight Up Breakdown podcast this week. Go listen to that, unless you've gotten sick of hearing my voice already, which is understandable. Aaron Sorensen and Sasha Durkin also have the Mind Your Own podcast, so go listen to that one. And then Jacob Padilla and Damon Benning are on the Nebraska Preps postgame show. So lots of stuff for lots of different niche audiences. Lots of stuff. You can get your sports fix. Anything you're wanting to listen to. Sometimes there's NBA talk on Greg's podcast, so you got the whole thing covered. We're a proud part of the Hurrdat Media Network. Again, shouts to Cam for producing, and to you guys for listening every single week. We'll be back next week.
A Hurrdat Media Production.